Mackey and Judd. A lot of Viking stuff here. This is a fun. We haven't really talked about this week. So Jake Ward via the Score North app says, "What's up, guys? After seeing the Derek Carr contract extension, do your opinions change at all with Kirk's contract?" So he, in fairness, he sent this message before we found out the full details of the Carr contract. He said Carr is earning quite a bit more than Kirk, but usually grouped in the same rankings as Cousins. So it's a 3-year, like $121 million contract. But as Pro Football Talk reported yesterday, only about $25 million of it is guaranteed at signing. So they gave him, his base salary was $21 million this year, and they bumped it up to like almost $25 million. So they gave him a raise for this season, and they guaranteed all of that. But then the rest of it is only guaranteed for injury between now and like the 3rd or 5th day of the league year next year. So if he gets hurt, there's another $40 million in guaranteed money, but the rest of that contract isn't guaranteed until like March of 2023. So they could cut him if they wanted to. Now, he negotiated a no-trade clause, so they can't trade him unless he approves. So there's some jockeying back and forth. But he's going to take up far less cap space this year, and the team has the flexibility, if they want, to move in a different direction via cutting him without having to guarantee the other like $100 million of this contract.
Right.
So very different situation. Kirk just has a clamp on the Vikings' groin area for the next 2 years with 0 outs or ability to move him. So.
Yeah, we need to, and it's a lot of fun to look at contracts and like the Schefter report is out and here's what the contract is. This is the one league where that is meaningless. Like we always get the initial contracts and we're like, wow, but this is why, you know what? Kirk deserves credit. It was not Deshaun Watson who had the first ever fully guaranteed contract. It was Kirk. And that's the only time that you can actually look at a contract and say, okay, that's the contract. Like this football thing drives me crazy. I mean, Dante Culpepper once got, I think, a 10-year, $100 million contract that was worth $5.
Yeah.
Like it had no guarantee.
He had no agent too, right?
No, he did. He fired him in part because
and then try to negotiate. Yeah.
But the fact is we get these reports on these contracts, and look, if you get the terms, that's fine. But we as media and fans need to then say, okay, we need to see the real contract, not what is basically amounts to a phony payday that looks great on paper.
Would you let me just pull up real quick here because Over the Cap has the updated quarterback cap hits for this year. So as of right now that Derek Carr had his contract extended, they gave him a raise. Now some of the money that he's guaranteed like $25 million in cash for this year, but $5 million of that in cap is pushed into future years. So his cap hit is only $19 million for this year, which puts him 12th. Cousins' cap hit is 3rd even after the deal. So here are in order the highest paid quarterbacks to the salary cap in 2022.
Sure.
Ryan Tannehill, number 1. They got into a bad situation with that contract. He's one of the top 20 quarterbacks, but like, woof. That makes it tough.
Woof. Now,
they've built a pretty good roster, and they've got some good young players that maybe haven't hit their big contracts yet, so they've got some value in other areas, but they're paying Tannehill $38.5 to the cap. Pat Mahomes is now number 2 at $35.5 to the cap. Cousins is 3rd at $31.5 to the cap. Goff is 4th at $31. Rodgers $28.5. Wentz at $28, which is a woof, right? Jimmy G, they can cut bait on him at any time and save almost all of this, but right now his cap hit is $27 million. It's a weird situation. Russell Wilson, 24. Lamar Jackson, 23. Tom Brady, 20. Dak, 20. Derek Carr, 19. Matt Ryan, 19. Josh Allen, 16. Matt Stafford, 13 after the redo. So that just kind of shows you, like, which quarterbacks are... That's one of the biggest differences is some of these guys are signing longer-term deals with more flexibility to move money around, and Kirk doesn't do that. Kirk wants short-term deals that maximize his earnings, and it makes it harder to bring those numbers down.
I'm pro player, but I really believe this league needs to get that position under some type of control. If we're talking about Mahomes, Brady, yeah, you know what? Knock yourselves out. But
What are they supposed to do though? Like,
but you just went through a list.
it's a market.
It's a market, and here's where I would work very hard to overcome it. I would work very hard to identify and draft QBs because Ryan Tannehill, flat out, is not close to being worth that. Like, I would rather take my chance on drafting one and build around that player. If I feel that I have the type of executive or type of football operations team that can identify quarterbacks, I would rather cycle through them. And I'm not talking Kirk here, but that Tannehill contract is ridiculous.
What makes it really hard is when you land Lamar Jackson late in the first round or Dak Prescott in the fourth round, and they're making nothing for the first 4 years.
Yep, I agree.
You can build a monster roster around them. And those guys have flaws as quarterbacks. You know, those guys aren't like Lamar was a top 5 quarterback a couple years ago. I think he's fallen out of the top 5 and probably closer to like 10 or 12 now. And then maybe he can prove it again. But it's about value. If you have one of those guys making nothing and you can use all the rest of your cap space to put linemen and cornerbacks and an extra weapon, right? Boom, you're off to the races. But then after 4 or 5 years, when those guys become free agents, you have to make a decision. Okay, can we keep the same level of roster when that guy goes from making, in Dak Prescott's case, like $1 million to 40, and we're capped at 200? Okay, right. Who has to go? Who are the casualties? Who's the extra edge rusher that has to go? Who's the extra offensive lineman? So you have to be so much more perfect in your drafting and in your free agent signing and lucky with health and everything. You just get more leeway. So that's the thing. Like when those guys become, do you have the grapefruits to say to Dak Prescott, hey, we like you, Dak Prescott, but we liked you as a 4th round pick for 4 years making $1 million. We are not going to sign you for 40. We're going to go try and find somebody else.
But I think
it's so hard to do that.
I agree completely, but I think we're entering a phase where you might have to. And here's the thing too. What separates Jared Goff and the price that you just read off, like that cap hit from a guy who walks into a bank with a mask on? like what's the difference? Nuts. He is robbing that team.
And think about this, like so Kirk's cap hit is, they're basically this. They both have like 31 million. Goff and Cousins have $31 million cap hits. Both teams are capped at $208 million to spend. So both have the same amount of money to spend on the rest of their roster. And there's things you can do, but think about how much more of an advantage and the Vikings don't have an advantage compared to like the Bills, who are paying a third as much for Josh Allen, right? But the Vikings and the Lions have such a better quarterback at the same price. Mm-hmm. The Lions have a lot more work to do to build an equal team around him, right? So that's why, like, when people dismiss the contract stuff in the NFL, I know it can be kind of complicated and convoluted, but it's such a big deal for roster construction.
Yes.
It makes such a difference.
Well, and question off of that too. So if you're Detroit, you have the 2nd pick. Valuable as hell, right? Like you could go a lot of different directions, lots of great players. But if you've done your due diligence and you think that Malik Willis is the guy, like you think this guy is going to be good, he might not be the greatest thing, but he's going to be damn good. It makes sense to draft him. Because that's 5 years team control. And if you're right, guess what? You can now build around him. And he doesn't have to be perfect, but if he's damn good, you have, at least for a fairly substantial period in pro sports of time, solved the problem. And now you can move on from Goff. So like, think about that. So like, this is where I think the decisions on quarterbacks aren't just cut and dry of, well, I don't really like him. Or I think if you think he is the guy, and there are people who definitely do, that could be an absolute great draft pick. And I think Phil Mackey froze.
He might have froze. Well, and if I could like potentially transport Carr's brain into Cousins, I love it a lot more. Like, he's right. From the original question of basically Kirk and Carr, if you were doing quarterback rankings, are always right there, right? They're neck and neck in terms of quarterback rankings. But if I could put Carr's brain into Kirk's God-given ability, like, that is a superior quarterback, in my opinion.
Yeah, that would help. Carr, look, he's got deficiencies both ways. Look, like, there are certain things He does, and I think his teammates genuinely like him, and I think that he is more of
Yes.
a pep in his step guy than Kirk is. But I really just believe the bigger topic, and why I'm trying to skirt Kirk here, is because Kirk becomes the lightning rod of all of these conversations for us. But the reason why I'm trying to not talk about Kirk is because I really think that the more, like, that list that Phil went through, Declan, is ridiculous. Like, there are guys, Ryan Tannehill is atop that list. And look,
Yeah.
he came back after being, after not having success as a Dolphin, and he played well. But in no way, shape, or form should he be atop that list. The fact that Goff and Cousins are that close is ridiculous. Kirk is, as Phil said, a superior player. And so when you look at the whole thing in its totality, I really think at some point in time, somebody has to at least try to make strides to get a better grasp on how this position should be valued and paid, especially when you look at rookie QBs, right? Who, if they're first round picks for 5 years, you've got control at a good price. I just think I think somehow the thought process of the quarterback needs to be impacted. It's one thing if you've got a Mahomes or a Brady or even a Rodgers, but we're talking about a lot of guys who are a step or two down, who are making ridiculous amounts in a league in which you have to be careful with your salary cap.
Joe, let me fire off a reckless speculation piece here from Vikings feedback that I just saw from Chase in our Score North YouTube channel. He says, make a trade with the Detroit Lions. Let them go best player available at 2, and when Willis slides to 12, let them give us 32 or 34 and their next year's first. I'd rather have Detroit's 2023 first, but even the one they have from the Rams and giving us flexibility to trade up next year, I'd love completely trading out of the first round this year to secure a top pick next year without having to trade up. I love that idea.
I actually responded to that tweet, and I got responses both ways. Great move, and you're crazy. Here's why I liked it. Well, first of all, I would need my executive team to say, we don't think Malik Willis is the guy. Like if he's a 12 and they're like, oh my God, this guy's gonna be a Hall of Famer. Now I've got to think about it. But if the response is, yeah, he's good, but he's not great. Yeah. I love this trade because what does it do? 1, it gets me a first round pick. 2, it gets me Detroit's first round pick. Let me say that slowly. The Dan Campbell Detroit Lions first round pick for 23. That very well could be top 10 again. The other thing it does too is if it's not top 10, it puts me in a prime position, because my guess is if it's not top 10, it's going to be top 15, to potentially package my first round pick with that pick and go way up and draft a quarterback. Now, do I think Detroit would make that trade with a division team? I don't know. And I don't know conversely if the Vikings would. That's a hot button. Should you trade within your division issue? I get that. But this was dismissed by some. And I thought to myself, I actually sort of like it. I'm with you. I sort of like it. If I can get anything that says first round pick from the Detroit Lions, I'm not going to scoff at that.
No,
they
not at all.
very well could be. They might win 5 games. I mean, they might be okay, but I until Dan Campbell has a really good year, and this is the Lions, I like my odds of Detroit being Detroit.
Mike Donato via the Score North app says, I need Phil and Judd to talk me off a cliff. I have been a Vikings fan since I was born. I live and die with the Vikings. I badly want to be at the Surly event on the 28th event, but I decided to go to Vegas instead. Ever since the extension broke, it has ruined my spring season. I have been extremely critical of the move on all social media platforms. My only theory is that Mensah and O'Connell got insurances from ownership that they would be given the time to right the ship. Or my other theory is that they were comfortable with tying their success to Cousins because they knew the ownership was willing to give them the extra time post-Cousins era, given the long leash they gave Zimmer and Spielman. Your thoughts? I just want the Vikings to win a damn Super Bowl before we die, and the goal to win the division and or playoffs doesn't cut it for me. Wow. Bravo from Mike.
There's only one important thing there, Philip. He's going to Vegas instead of joining us at Surly?
Listen, it's going to be a blast at Surly, but come on, it's Vegas. Can't blame him.
You know what?
Sounds like a freaking blast.
Me personally, Surly.
Yeah.
I'm not a Vegas guy.
I pulled the plug on my Vegas trip for next week. I don't know if I told you guys that. I pulled the plug.
Yeah,
I could not find appropriate airfare without literally paying an absurd amount, and I refuse to fly the cheap airlines to get to Vegas. I refuse.
Well, yeah, Spirit you can fly cheap, but then they charge you if you like pull a Kleenex out of your pocket. It's like $10.
Yeah. If I tie my shoe, it's like another $25 fee. So yeah, I pulled the plug on my Vegas trip.
You have laces on that left
those are
shoe?
laces on those
That's
shoes.
$12.
I don't know.
I don't know, Jim.
I'm proud of you.
Well, listen, Mike. I don't know. Just give these guys. This is where I'm at. I think I fully agreed 2 months ago. I guess this isn't the direction I would go, but there's been a lot of good things that have happened here. I love everything that the new leadership has said publicly so far, and so, all right, let's let them do it their way. Let's see what happens in 2022, and then if we need to, bring a scolding to the table, a scold.
Oh, this is.
We're doing so well. That's a great freeze frame on
This
Phil.
is a great freeze
completely
frame. I hope everyone can capture this and tweet it out today.
Oh man.
Yeah, Mike, you're just gonna have to be like they've chosen their path. Phil's right. Do I like it? Not necessarily. Do I like what the Bears are doing personally? Yeah, I sort of do. Tear things down, but that is one of the great all-time freeze frames of Phil.
That is great.
And
let me just
anyone
throw
out there,
I can't get it back on there.
If anyone out
amazing.
there did not grab that and does not put that on Twitter,
yeah,
I'll be very disappointed. All right, give me a few more, and then we're gonna wrap up this train wreck of episode.
Paulford Skoll, friend of the show. He says, please tell me you're cheering for Slaughter this weekend. We got our football again, boys, with the USFL back. In fact, I have to write that down. I believe that Kyle Slaughter will be like I think USFL MVP or something. I think I have some write that down on that. But yeah, USFL football is back, baby. I'm excited for that. Yeah, so, there's football this weekend.
So to go back 2 or 3 years, I think it was 3 years back now. When it was Mackey and Judd with Rami. When it was the Association of American Football and then the XFL. And Phil and I are both like, well, we'll dabble for sure. Like we'll watch a little bit. And Rami's like, that is garbage. I wouldn't go across, I wouldn't do anything to watch it. What is the Declan Goff? If I happen upon the USFL, would you stop or not? Because I always said I'll stop. And then if it's crap, you just change channel to baseball or something or basketball.
Yeah, no, I'll watch it. Also, to be honest, selfishly on this show, I'm excited because it gives us, at least gives me, I shouldn't speak for both of you, it gives me room to make football predictions in the offseason. Because I don't like doing the Judd Zolgad pushing all 3 of your predictions 8 months out the board. Yep. I like to know and remember what I did, and I also don't want to be burned in the future. So I like to know what that happened. So actually, selfishly, that's why I'm most excited for the USFL is to make football predictions.
No, you see, that's no. You push them off, and then when they're right, you're like, I didn't even recall that prediction. So the weird thing about this league is the entire USFL season is going to be staged in Birmingham, Alabama.
Yeah.
So they're not going to have games like in St. Louis and blah, blah, blah. They're going to have every game is going to be played in Birmingham. So I'm not sure if this is like a year one COVID thing or what, but eventually, and my question is this, and I'm shocked. When are we going to get one of these godforsaken leagues? Because we're a good football town to put a team in. Like we've never had one.
Like what? Just like in the cities, you think too, like Minneapolis, St. Paul, where it's like you put it in Duluth or Rochester or.
Well, that too, but no, I'm just trying to think of like in, I don't know if you could rent out US Bank Stadium or something eventually.
I doubt it.
And have some games there. Or you know what? This time of year, TCF Bank Stadium, or I should say Huntington Bank Stadium.
Huntington Bank Stadium.
How about that?
Yeah, I wouldn't oppose that either. I'm excited for the USFL.
Town.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I'm mildly curious.
And the XFL, which starts in like 10 months.
That's another year out or whatever.
Yeah, that's in February.
All right, give me 1 or 2 more, and then we're going to be done.
All right, let's go with one more here.
What happened this show?
Ken says, I love Royce Unchained, and as a Packers fan, I'm thrilled that Patrick is once again picking the Vikings to win the division. I think that makes sense in 3 years in a row. He keeps talking about the Packers losing lots of guys. No doubt Adams is a big loss. And while you would rather have him, the Packers are 7-0 when he's been out over the past 3 years. Interesting. And Adams is a loss for the Packers, but the Packers have some great players who didn't contribute last year coming back and some draft capital. I think the Packers do have 2 first-round picks now because of the Devontae Adams trade. You can guarantee, in fact, I might write this down. The Packers are probably going to use one of those 2 first-round picks, Judd, to draft a receiver. They have to. They have to. And I love...
They just signed Sammy Watkins yesterday.
Yeah, and he's going to be held for 4 games before he lands in the IR. And honestly, I love my guy Aaron Nagler on Packers Daily. I think he does, seriously, such a good... Cheesehead Daily, not Packers Daily. Cheesehead Daily. I think he does an awesome job at explaining Packers stuff. And I know Vikings fans absolutely loathe him, but I think he does a great job. And he always says, next man up. That's what Ken had just said on the Score North app is exactly what Packers say. Next man up. That's just as much as we rip them, and the Jordan Love pick is rippable. We can rip them all we want for it. They do have that mentality of who's the next guy up. That's who they've always been.
Well, right. And it's because they basically had 30 years of really elite quarterback play. That's the thing. So with Rodgers, we're going to find out in 2022 what he can do without Devontae. But look, in the regular season, my guess, he'll be fine. He usually is. I mean, he transitioned from Jordy Nelson to Devontae. Devontae was great. But this team has always been able to find players. And the thing about, too, is the receiver position is becoming, I think, more and more important. And you're definitely seeing them go a lot in the first round now. But, to go back to Stephon Diggs, you can find them outside of the first round. I am done putting a nail in the Packers' coffin. I've done it for the last 2 years, and they have won, I think, a total of 26 regular season games. Okay. So I'm done there until they suck, which will probably be when they don't have either Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers a quarterback. Until they're awful, I am done trying to say this is it for the Packers.
Yeah, you're right.
They've done a good enough job, and regular season wise, that quarterback remains special. He's a freak. He's a weird dude. I'm not a big fan, but he remains special.
All right. Feedback Friday with Internet Gremlins. Some Towns talk.
I'd like to apologize for our
Wolves
Internet
talk.
Gremlins.
We'll be back. No, go ahead.
It sounds like yours was bad. Phil's is in the process of being worked on. That's right. That means Judd Zolgad, much maligned for his age and internet connection. Judd Zolgad was the ace of today's game, the number 1 star. I came out and threw 95 pitches over 7 innings. And
I'm pulling you after 7. I'm pulling you after 7. Perfect game. I'm pulling you after 7 innings. You're done.
Tell the people about our show tomorrow.
Feedback Friday. Hit the subscribe button. We'll be back right after the Wolves and Grizzlies game for game 1. Right here on this YouTube channel. So hit the subscribe button. We're on the Score North app, Apple, Spotify. We'll be back tomorrow.